Hi, everyone. Welcome to Read It Again online author series. I'm Anne, and I am happy to welcome today Brenda Novak. She has written more than 60 books. She is an 8-time Rita Award nominee and has won the National Reader's Choice Award, as well as the Bookseller's Best Award. Every spring, I personally look forward to one of Brenda's new releases to kickstart my summer reading. And today, she's going to discuss her newest release called One Perfect Summer. Welcome, Brenda.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry about the whole time situation. And
I apologize. I should have asked. I don't remember if it was even on the email. I just heard 4 o'clock. I put that on my calendar.
Well, us too. So no worries. I'm so glad that you fit us in. I appreciate it.
Oh, I look forward to it.
Well, thank you. One thing that I am interested in is how are you doing during these unsettling times with your book chats and your book tours and interviews? How have things changed for you right now?
It's not a time when you'd want to have a book come out with all the bookstores closed, of course. And I was super excited about this book. I really think it's a special one. And so I was looking forward to it. And then, of course, when everything sort of went off the rails, I had to rethink what my expectations should be. So I know it's a very, very hard time, and it's hurting publishing in general and authors and bookstores, and just like it's hurting other industries. So I feel terrible about that. That's sort of the downside. But I also have a silver lining over here where I was so behind that I was actually able to catch up. So I've just kind of kept my head down and kept working and trying not to think too much about all of it because it enabled me to get a chance to just kind of get caught up. And so I finally feel like I'm kind of on top of things, and I'm looking around going, okay, I'm ready to go out now. And of course we still can't, but it took me a while to kind of catch up with the rest of the world.
Do you see in the future that your book tours are going to change a little? Are you liking doing these interviews, or do you actually like connecting with the people?
I like both. I like online because it does enable you to connect with a wider group, but there's nothing that can replace that FaceTime with people where you actually meet them. And my events are, I'm a big hugger, so I make a lot of friends at my events, and so I remember those people easier because I'm sort of a person who, when I've met you in person, your face and your name stick a little bit better than just something online. So I really find it great for building relationships, and so I'll continue if we can. If it's to where we can get back out again, I'm hoping to do that, and I love to have the events. We always do a lot of, raffle baskets and all kinds of other fun things. And so it's we have people who come to more than one, they collect pins and come to all of them. And so we make them fun, and we have a lot of fun with the people who come. So I'm looking forward to being able to do them again. Relying on technology can be glitchy sometimes. So it has its problems as well. So we just, we're making the most of it, but hoping to get back on track.
That's wonderful. Well, I finished the book last week. Very much enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you.
Thank you. So tell everyone about the book and what actually prompted you to tell the story.
Well, I had run into this type of thing where a DNA test leads to secrets of the past and hidden family. And I have a close family member who it happened to, a very good friend who was just going through it at the same time. My husband had just done his. No dark secrets there, but it was just an interesting experience. So with all of these people, it was very topical. People were talking about it. My husband still does like a search on YouTube for the stories where people are finding family, because we find it very touching. And of course, the mystery of it all is kind of interesting too. So anyway, it's just something that was an interest of mine. And when it started becoming to where so many people that I knew had done it, I thought, that would be really fun to write a story. My husband actually suggested it. He said, you should do one, that has to do with DNA. And so then I kind of took it from there and thought, what about 3 sisters who would, are far from each other, even in different states, never knew each other, would have no reason to suspect that they have family out there, and then have them get this big secret with their DNA test and try and figure out, how did this happen? So I like the mystery element as well as the sort of hidden dark secrets. And I also like the element of people finding family and just getting to know them, people you never knew that were family, and building a relationship. So that's kind of what I thought was fun with the three sisters in here, because as they come to get to know each other, at first they're unsure whether they're going to end up liking each other or being glad that they connected. And then, of course, as the story develops, you see how the friendships and then the familial bonds develop.
And how did you develop the three sisters? Because they are all different. They have different skeletons, if you will. How did you decide what sister was going to have what personality and what issues and that sort of thing?
Gosh, that's a hard question. When you start creating characters as a writer, they just sort of start coming to you. So I didn't actually impose that on them so much, as I knew I wanted them to be different. I knew I wanted, a career girl, and I wanted a homemaker. And so I wanted people coming from different walks of life. But as their voices started hitting the page and started sort of speaking to me, they just sort of developed into who they were. And their own specific problems kind of helped shape them. Their backgrounds helped shape them. So they just sort of emerged from that mist of my imagination, which I enjoy doing with any book and creating any characters.
That's wonderful. I don't want to do a spoiler for those that haven't read it yet, but I did not see the ending at all.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, because when I started out writing, I didn't know the ending, and I never do, because if I know it, I'm such a blabbermouth, the reader can pick up on it immediately, because if I know it, it goes in the pages. So I always make sure that I don't know what's going to happen next either, because then I'm surprised as I write. I enjoy the story more, and I'm more immersed in it. And then hopefully I can surprise my reader too, and haven't given too much away. So trying to figure it out, going from that angle toward the end was getting a little tough. But I was glad when it finally hit me, the curve that I wanted to throw in there. So I'm glad it worked out.
I just want to say out to everyone, if you have questions for Brenda, please post them and we will get them to Brenda just as quickly as we can. One question that I have is, how do you get your ideas? Because you write romantic suspense, you write general fiction, you write historical romance. How do you separate them?
I don't know. I guess just because I'm such an eclectic reader, it makes me an eclectic writer. I have so much. I mean, as a child, I didn't even know what genres were. I just read what I liked. And so I kind of do that as a writer. I write what I would like to read. And it has led me kind of far afield as far as, I've done the suspense stuff too. Like you say, I've done all of that and I enjoy it all. That's the fun thing. But I get my ideas. That's such a tough question, because when I first started writing, I started writing a historical, and I had one idea and I thought it was going to be my big idea, and I didn't know what would come behind it. And then I kind of quickly learned that your brain has to become a sifter, and you have to pick up other ideas, and you have to be somewhat prolific to be able to build a name in the industry. So as soon as I finished that book and I started sifting, and then as you go along, you get another idea, which leads to another idea, which leads to another idea. And pretty soon you're looking for ideas in everything, in what you read and what you do and what you hear people say, in the shows you watch. And it's never a complete copy. It's just maybe an element. Like you'll like something about some character that you've seen on TV, and that would be such an interesting character to pit against this different type of conflict. And so you kind of can mix and match, and it's always different and unique that way. And yet you've got your ideas, from everything that you've encountered. So whatever goes in the well seems to come back out. My husband will joke and he'll say, oh my gosh, like I remember when that happened to us, and here it is, in your book. And I'm like, well, it's all fodder for the mill.
Do you actually outline your books, or?
No, I can't. For some reason, that is so difficult for me. And so I just kind of have to honor my own process. I mean, I've heard other writers get up there and say, you cannot possibly write a good book unless you outline. And, I kind of hang my head and think, I just can't outline. I'm not a plotter. Firstly, because of what I mentioned, I end up giving too much away. So it loses that emotional tension that gives it the propulsion forward if I give too much away. So I don't outline, but what's weird is I think my subconscious sort of launches out ahead of my conscious mind, because this process, after I think I've written almost 70 books now, it has never led me astray. I've had the most rewriting I've ever had to do was I had to lift a subplot out of one of my early books because it was sort of wrestling with the main plot. And that was about a 70-page lift, which is significant, but it's the only time I've ever had to do that. And then those 70 pages became the second book in the series. So even then I didn't lose them. So I think your subconscious just kind of shoots out ahead, and you have to trust your intuition and trust your creativity to kind of guide you. To me, what writer's block is when that process completely dries up. Like I do not know where to go, and that's what tells me I've gone wrong. I've taken a wrong turn. And so it's actually a blessing, not a curse, because then it forces me to go back and say, what did I do wrong? And usually it's not very far from the break. You know, I go back and figure out, oh, okay, if I take it this other direction, I'm off and running again. So yeah, for whatever reason, we call them pantsers in the business. You're a plotter or you're a pantser. I'm definitely a pantser.
Someone asked a question going back to the book. Who was your favorite sister?
Well, I'm a romance writer at heart. So, you know, I probably, I don't know, it's hard to pick a favorite. That's like asking me my favorite children. And as soon as I start picking one, I start thinking, well, I like this about the other character. So I don't know, the one with the love story probably would edge out the others a little more, because I always love putting a little love story in there. I think there'll probably be a little romance in everything I write.
Well, and I liked each sister. I could take a little bit of each one that I liked, and there were some attributes that I didn't like about others, and that sort of thing. So, but I like the way that you developed all of them. So, tell us what's your typical writing day like? Do you write every day? Do you write when an idea comes to you?
You know, because I'm on contract, I can't wait for the muse to hit me. It's a job, you know, so I get up and I do it every day. I don't necessarily, I don't do it on the weekends. I mean, to me, I try and make it a normal job, and I, you know, stop when my husband comes home and we have dinner and have our evening together. But yeah, I get up and I launch out a lot of things that an author does now. It used to be that they primarily concentrated on just the writing and the publisher handled everything else. But in this new digital world that we have, the author does a lot of the promotion that she or he didn't do before. So that actually takes up quite a bit of my time, just answering, you know, all my email, and because you get a lot of your fan letters through email now, not snail mail. And answering business things. I have an assistant who helps me out trying to take care of keeping track of different things and helping with the store on my website. And then my daughter, of course, handles a lot of my social media and the Brenda Novak book boxes and the book group that we have on Facebook, which is large, so it takes a lot of time, but we've met the most wonderful people there. So I do a bit of that, and then I settle down to write, and I try and get, you know, at least 5 good pages done per day. That gives me 100 per month, and I have about 4 months to write a book, so it keeps me pretty steady on track. And I'm the type who, I can't procrastinate, because then I would tense up and not be able to hit my deadline, because I think I can't get done. So I have to lope along and make sure I stay pretty current with where I need to be, so that when the time comes to finish it up, you know I can get it in on time. I'm not under so much pressure.
That's wonderful. You actually touched on your reader's box, and tell everyone about that box. And I don't know if Kim could actually pull or send out what that link is. How does one get one? What do we need to do?
The weird thing about this is the whole book group started out, is when I first hired my daughter to kind of come on and be on the team. And we were looking forward to working together. And she said, Mom, let's start a book group. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like that's so much work, you know, to try and manage, in addition to your Facebook page and your Instagram and all the other things you're doing. But and so we sort of saw it as this very intimate small group where, you know, we would pick a book in the months that I don't have a release. We'd feature another author. We'll all read it together. We'll talk to that author by going to her house and actually kind of inviting the group into her home to speak with her with us. That was the concept. And we've done that with many of the authors, Sandra Brown, Robin Carr, Karen Rose, Allison Brennan, a whole bunch of them, because we've done it now for over 3 years. But it grew so fast that we're almost at 17,000 members, but it still retains that small feel because everybody's so kind and good to each other and supportive and very active, and talk about book lovers. I mean, these women love books like I love books. So of course they're book sisters. And so when we started that where we would feature other authors, we thought, you know, wouldn't it be cool if the book that we read that month, the members could get an autographed copy. And so we started thinking, oh, well, we'll put together this fun bookish box where they can start out with an autographed copy of our month's read, and then they'll get a cool blanket, like a lap blanket, that says something fun about reading, and maybe some hot cocoa. And anyway, so we started putting together, curating these fun boxes, and we've now done them for three years and 3 months. And every month we sell out. It's very rare that we don't. May's are already gone. We're almost out of June's. And so we're trying, it's hard to scale it. We do 500 a month. For April, since I had a release, we did 800. But with COVID-19 and not being able to get any help packing them, my poor daughter and her boyfriend, they're just killing themselves trying to get all this done. So we cut back to 500 again for May and June, and we'll see how it goes from there. But they're just a fun surprise that people can sign up for a subscription and get one each month, so they know that they're going to get the entire collection of our year's read autographed. They can put it on a shelf. They can pick one just for their birthday or anniversary. They can send one to a friend. So we've made it as loose and as fun as possible. And it's just, people love to get something special, especially I think women of a certain age. I think they tend to feel a little forgotten. They've given and given as a mother, as a grandmother, as a friend, whatever. And then it's kind of something nice that comes for them. It's a little fun package. And some of them let their grandkids open it up or open it at work so their friends can see it. And so we just have a lot of fun with them, picking what's going to go in them, and even packing them. We have a packing crew in normal times where they will come over and we'll all eat lunch. And so it's just a bunch of us there chatting and talking and doing, packing these boxes. So we have a great time with it on both ends.
Yeah, I think they're fabulous, and they're very pretty, and you can tell that you actually take some time to think about what goes into them. Yeah. Absolutely.
I have to credit my daughter with that. She does all the design.
Oh, and she does a great job.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah. So I wanted to show the cover because I absolutely loved the cover of the book. How do you decide what goes on the cover? Is it a struggle? You always do such great, bright covers that are very, it just really grabs you when you're looking at the book.
Oh, good. I'm happy to hear that, because it's really funny you would ask this question. We're kind of going back and forth with the cover of a book that's coming out next April called The Bookstore on the Beach. And so we're trying to get it just right. I feel like we really hit it well with this one. I think that the three sisters, are well depicted in the hammock. I think that they actually got a really good picture of Tahoe. That is a picture of Tahoe. And so it fits really well. The colors, like you say, pop with the whole summer thing. So I think that my publisher gets the credit on this one. They hit it out of the park. And so I was super excited. The second they sent it to me, I knew it was the right thing. It just clicked. Sadly, that doesn't happen with every book. Sometimes you go back and forth and be like, well, but this and well, but that. And so we're kind of doing that on the next one, because I think The Bookstore on the Beach has so much potential, that title. I really want to see a spectacular cover, and they're working hard to make that happen. So I can't wait to see what they come up with in the end. It'll be neat. I'll be debuting that soon.
Oh, wonderful. Well, that's one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and we can go into that, is I know that you're coming out with California Christmas, which is a Silver Spring series, which I absolutely love. I'm thrilled to hear that that's coming out. But what else is on your agenda? And you kind of hinted a little bit that you were coming out with another one. Can you share?
Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty excited about this because I just pitched it to my editor and she went for it. So I was super excited. I just announced it on Facebook. I have a long-running series of 10 books called Whiskey Creek, and it's set in a fictional gold country town not far from where I live. It's based on like Jackson, Sutter Creek, which are gold country towns in Northern California where gold was discovered. And they haven't changed a whole lot. They have a lot of cool atmosphere, and they feel very, 1800s kind of, with their cool boardwalks and Victorians and different things. So I really had a lot of fun writing that series. Well, then I moved into Silver Springs, which is a series that is set in a fictional town close to LA, but it's very much like Ojai. So it's in the general vicinity of Ojai. And so about 90 minutes northwest. And so it's a really cool place too. But I had 4 stories that I still really wanted to write for Whiskey Creek, and we're having trouble figuring out when are we going to do these and how are we going to fit them in. And so what we decided is that there's a story that could easily, the characters could move to Silver Spring. So I'm actually uniting these 2 series. And this is a story that many of my readers have asked me about, with a subplot that also takes care of a Dylan and Cheyenne detail that has sort of lingered out there. And so it'll give me a chance to sort of give those Whiskey Creek fans another story, but also Silver Spring fans too. So I think it's going to work out really well. I've already started it. I'm on like chapter 3, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is going to work. I really like it.
That's wonderful. Now, when you write a book, because you were telling about specific places, do you actually go to those places and do research, or have you visited them so many times that you don't need to? You already have your story. Do you do any research?
A little bit of both. Like, I at least make sure I see it because I want to get it in my head. And I feel like you can write from a place of more authority, which makes your writing more vivid and convincing, if you know it well. And I've had to do it without visiting it. For instance, my first book was set in Manchester, England, back in the early 1800s. And so obviously I can't visit that. So, and the internet wasn't quite what it was today. So the research for it was much more difficult, and I had to use my imagination. And I'll never forget getting an email from somebody who was from there, and I was terrified to open it because I thought, oh, they're going to tell me all the things, that I got wrong. And they said, you must be from here. This is awesome, And so I had to smile. So I'm like, poof, thank goodness that my research came through for me. But nowadays, with the ones that are in California, so easy for me to go visit them. I make sure that I do. And so I visited them a number of times. I don't think I go back a lot, but I at least 3 times. The Gold Country towns aside, because I visit them anyway. But Ojai, for instance, I've only been there about 3 times. But that's why I make them a fictional town, because then I can set them up the way I want to. And if I need a certain type of store, even if that store doesn't actually exist in Ojai, I can put that store in there because my town is in Ojai. So that's the beauty of having a fictional town. You can sort of personalize it and do what you want with it. But I like having a rough sort of image in my mind of what it would look like. And that's how I decide it's going to be Ojai or Jackson or similar to those.
That's great. How do you, and I know that you're working on some upcoming books, but how do you take some time to celebrate your newly released books? Do you take a little bit of downtime, or are you constantly writing and you're just on to the next book?
Yeah, I think early on, finishing a book was more of an accomplishment to me because it was harder and newer. So I'd be like, oh, I'm done. And we'd do a little more to celebrate. But we had, I raised 5 kids. And so any extra time I had, I spent on them. So I don't know that we ever did anything really big. I would just turn my attention more toward my family when I could. Now, I definitely feel that sense of relief. I notice that as my deadline gets closer, my tension level kind of, beginning of the deadline starts here. And then as you approach it, obviously it goes up at a 45-degree angle. So as soon as I finish and that stress drops again, it feels great. You get this sort of euphoric feeling, and then it's fun to write again. So you're actually eager to dive into the next one. My favorite part of a book is the first, getting in the foundation. Mm-hmm. I love doing that. It's when I'm first getting to know the characters and I'm setting up the vision in my head, and I don't know why I enjoy that part so much. The hardest part for me is the ending, because I like to make a mess. I like the conflict, but resolving it isn't as fun to me. So I'm actually making a concerted effort to make sure I give my endings more attention and let the reader feel that stronger sense of denouement after everything I've put him or her through, with the level of conflict that I like in my stories.
Well, you totally kicked it out of the park on this one.
Oh,
it was fabulous.
Oh,
so who are you reading these days? Who are your go-to authors that you have? And do you have a favorite book?
I have so many favorite books. I don't think I could name one, but I can name one that was probably most pivotal in my life, and that would be Jane Eyre. I found I didn't like to read when I was a child, and they would make us, obviously, and they'd take us into the school library, and I thought I hated it. And then I found the classics, and I started reading. I think the first one was The Secret Garden, and I just devoured it. And then when I found Jane Eyre and realized romance, you know, when I was 8 or 9, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. So I went through that entire shelf, and I that's where I gained my love for reading, was with that favorite book back then. So it's still one of my favorites. The Thornbirds is one of my favorites. I just had so many that were sort of iconic. Shogun, James Clavell's Shogun was just, I remember that being just riveting to me. And now if I want to read somebody, I usually go to, it depends on what I'm in the mood for. I often read true crime now because I love to write suspense, and that sort of informs ideas and stuff. It gives me ideas. But I like to read Susan Elizabeth Phillips. I'm always excited when she gets a new book, when she has a new book coming out.
She does. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I just can't wait to see what's in that one. I really like, as far as suspense, there are so many good suspense writers. How do I even narrow that down? Who would I name? Gosh, I can't think of one right off the top of my head that's all-time favorite. But I have so many favorites. It's really tough to find one. In every genre, I have one. Like, I love Philippa Gregory. I love reading historicals. So I love Brenda Rickman Van Treese. I don't know if you've ever tried hers, The Illuminator. Her research was impeccable. It was so good. It felt like I was living in the Middle Ages. So just hats off to all these fabulous writers. To me, I think that's why I'm excited about the book that's going to come out that's called The Bookstore on the Beach, because to me, a bookstore, you walk into a bookstore and the promise of that bookstore, just all the tombs in there. I don't even know how to describe it. I mean, other bibliophiles will understand, but I just get this sort of sense of excitement that just kind of strums through my body, and just which one will I get and what will be inside it. And so I love them all.
So many options. I know that you had an interesting way of actually getting started writing, that it wasn't necessarily something that you had remotely thought about. Do you mind sharing?
Not at all. Not at all. I did think I was left-brained. I was better in math and science, and so I thought I'd, go out in business. And I was also raised in a very traditional religious household. So I was always taught that my role was to support my husband. And of course, I got married and had 5 kids and was taking care of my kids. But I was also working part-time doing loans. And so while I was away from my children, my daycare provider, I only had 3 at the time. So it was my baby, my 2-year-old, and then I had a 5-year-old who was old enough to talk, so I don't think she got it. But my daycare provider was giving them cough syrup and Tylenol to get them to sleep all day so that she could watch soap operas. And then they'd get up at night, and I'd think, they're not sick, they're happy, they just want to play. So anyway, I kind of figured it out. I found it in my baby's bottle, and then with the other clues, I went, oh, my goodness. And I felt so guilty having left them vulnerable to this, that I remember just being devastated, and I couldn't trust anymore. I couldn't let anybody else take care of my children. So I had to quit my job to stay home with them. But we definitely needed more money than what we had coming in. So I was trying to figure out something I could do. I mean, I really felt like somebody had tied my hands and feet and thrown me into a pool and said, swim, but because I was so handicapped, I couldn't do anything with these little kids. Everything I thought about, I'm thinking, but how can I take them with me to do that? Like, for instance, one thing I thought about was a typing service, because the one asset I knew I had was that I was a really fast typist. But then it was pre-internet, and it was just when it was coming out, barely, and it wasn't what it is today. And so I thought, how do I haul them around town and put up signs, or how do I get business? So my sister sent me Jude Devereux's Knight in Shining Armor, which is an iconic book for romance lovers. And I was reading that, and it was just a great escape at a time when I needed it most. And I remember loving it. And as I closed the book, I thought, I wonder if I could do this. This is something I could do at home. And I started the next day, and I have never looked back. I mean, once I found it, I knew that was my calling in life. That's what felt right to me. And I was grateful. Again, a silver lining to a dark time. And so I've never looked back, and I just loved every minute of trying to create these stories. So in a way, I don't thank her, because I don't want anything to have happened to my children, but it did set me on the course that I've taken since, for sure.
Speaking of children, and I know that you said that you have 5 children, you have a foundation that you have due to one of your children being, is it
diabetes? Yes,
diabetes.
Yeah, my baby.
Could you talk to us about your foundation? And
yeah. I was, I was writing. I was a new novelist, somewhat new, and my son was only 5, my youngest. And he was diagnosed with type 1. And I you hear a lot about diabetes, but I think you get sort of, calloused toward it because it's so common. And I even had his daycare provider say, no, it'd be fine, just give him insulin. But it's not quite that easy. It affects every organ in your body, and it is a constant struggle to maintain your blood sugar. I mean, it's just a moving target constantly. So you're trying to take over for the body, and it's a really difficult thing to do. And so once the doctor sat me down, and I was afraid of needles, so I'll never forget that, he hands me this needle, tells me I have to poke my little 5-year-old, many times a day. And I remember feeling like I'm going to slide down, I'm going to pass out, But I decided I wanted to fight back. I wanted to do something about this to try and help find a cure. So what I did was I started an online auction for diabetes research. I ran it for 10 years. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work, which is why I don't still do it. I gave it a good 10 years. And I may do another one in the future. I'm toying with that. But it was like having a second full-time job. So it is pretty big to gather that many items. We would raise about $360,000 per year there toward the end. So we actually ended up raising about $2.6 million over the course of my efforts. So I'm very grateful to all the people who contributed. What was really special about it is that so many people in publishing stepped up. And that was the greatest items on there. And not only were there really cool items like Lunch with Lee Child and Lunch with Diana Gabaldon and some of my favorite authors, but there was, the chance to get published by having an editor at a major house read your work, get back to you within 24 hours with a phone call. I mean, that's just unheard of. So people, aspiring writers were excited about it, and people, of course, who had diabetes were excited about it. And we had it every May because May is Mother's Day, so I thought that would be a good month for that. And so, yeah, we've done different fundraising efforts since then. For instance, in November, all the proceeds for our Brenda Novak book boxes goes to diabetes research because November is Diabetes Awareness Month. And we've done other things along the way, digital box sets and stuff. But so we always try to do something. I dearly would love to see a cure for diabetes in my lifetime. I don't know if that will happen. It's proving quite elusive, but we're giving it all we got.
That's wonderful. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I'm sorry about the time difference that we didn't get it exactly right. So I'm glad that you gave us a second shot there. And you were very nice. And let me see if I can do this right. You gave us some nameplates.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I have 7 nameplates. Whoever orders your book first, that will give the nameplates that you sent to us, along with the poster that I'm sitting right by. So I appreciate that you took the time. I hope things go well. I'm so excited about these books that are coming out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you again for your time and for the interview. And I hope things go well from here on out.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And we will hopefully, I posted in the book group. Hopefully we'll get some group members to come out and check out your store too.
We would love that. Anytime that you are close to Atlanta, I'm speaking for Kim, that absolutely we would welcome you whenever you can fit us in.
Awesome. Well, I'm coming in the fall, so I'll be sure. If we're permitted, I'm coming in the fall.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, me too. That sounds so far off. But I am coming for the launch of A California Christmas. So I'll definitely come by and see you guys.
Wonderful. Well, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. Great
You
interview.
as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.